Yo, this is Trav. Once again, we're back, Bias and I. Our second episode of our Sports Bag Bros podcast. You can check us out right now. We're on YouTube. We're also on Spotify if you want to check out our broadcast there. If you do decide to go to YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's try to get this thing out there because we want to be like everyone else and do well. We don't want to be struggle streamers. We want to have a legitimate sports conversation going. That's why we're doing this show. Also, like the channel as well. That helps the algorithm more than even subscriptions. So when you like it, the algorithm gets a hold of it. It shows it to more people who may love sports as well because we're just sports guys. We want to have a conversation with you about sports. Almost any sports you want to speak of because we're not going to talk curling here when the Winter Olympics comes around. So you're out of luck with that one. Anyway, once again, the Sports Bag Bros podcast is live and full effect. I'm Trav. He's Bias. My other host, not co-host, he's the other host, the other half of the Sports Bag Bros podcast. Bro, we're here. So what's up for big today? We're talking all of these different sports, but as you might have seen on the thumbnail, well, the Oakland A's announcer, Glen Kuiper, well, he's been fired. It happened a while ago, probably about 3 weeks ago, but he was caught because he had made a slur. We have a clip of that, and we'll talk about it. But before we do that, what's on your mind right now, guys?
No, I mean, can you blame the guy? Maybe that was his way of getting out of there. The A's are historically bad, and he's looking for a way out. I don't agree with what he said, obviously. He probably could have found another better way to get out of it, but maybe subconsciously, that word came out because he didn't like what he was seeing.
Well, he's been there for quite some time, I believe 15 years or so. So he's been around for some bad baseball for a while. There's been some good baseball as well, but he's been around for some abysmal baseball.
Not especially this bad, though.
I mean, this year, this is like minor league baseball, what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
And for those who may not know, I do have the clip, and we're going to play it right now. So here's a clip of it right now of what happened. This is Glen Kuiper, his co-host, and this is just the incident. So check it out.
We had a phenomenal day today. Negro League Museum and Arthur Bryant's Barbecue.
And of course, and as you can see, the people in the booth or people in the truck, the producers, they caught it immediately. So they threw it to the game and they cut straight to the game. His co-host just knew he was fried. Once it happened, it rolled off of his tongue so well. And for those of you to give it some context, he was talking about going to the Negro League Museum. So the Negro League Museum, and this is what he came out with. I mean, not even a Freudian slip. It's just something that he said and the way it came out, and we'll watch it again for some more context.
We had a phenomenal day today. Negro League Museum and Arthur Bryant's Barbecue.
It's not funny, but it's still funny because when he said it, it wasn't like his eyes even got wide to notice that, I just said something that's probably
he said something wrong.
Suicide.
Yeah, he didn't know he said something wrong or that he shouldn't have said. He just kept talking.
He just kept talking. I mean, his expression, because normally when people say something, even smacking yourself in the mouth like, oh my, that might have been something that he could have done, but it was so just normally coming out of his mouth. I'm the last person who would be one of these race hustlers that we have today, especially today. But this here is just something that just couldn't be hidden. You couldn't make any excuse for it. And then you wonder where it came from. Is this something that he just feels so comfortable saying when he's not on the air to where when he's on the air, and if it is a mistake, he doesn't really catch himself until, well, they caught him, they cut away. But like I mentioned, his eyes didn't get wide. He didn't show any shock or even remorse. We're like, oh, wow, this just happened. His co-host, he still looks down. I don't think it really processed with him immediately, but, he kind of knew something was going on as well. But they cut away from it.
I mean, he said it like he was talking to a group of his friends that he's comfortable saying it to.
Exactly. And that's the point I made. In his free time, his regular day, I don't think he sits around just saying it. But I think in the flow of conversation with his friends or people that he's close with, that he can trust, he probably it drops. You know what I'm saying? And And unfortunately, the way things are right now, especially in today's society, everything is, micro, everything's on a micro level where, some people could say it, whether it's in a record or whether it's on television, and they probably may, delete it, or they might just mute it, but he can still say what they want to say, these people. But, and we already know.
But he said it with the hard ER. He didn't say it with at the end.
Yep, and that's the truth. I don't like getting into semantics like that, whether it was the ER or the A, but you made a great point. That's exactly what it was. And a friend of mine I was talking to when it first happened, I was like, man, I feel bad for him because this is career suicide. And this guy tells me, he's like, I don't care. I'm glad that it happened. And this is a white guy. I mean, he's Greek, but he's a white guy. He's like, man, I don't care. He got what he deserved. And this is just when he was suspended. This is before the firing. And, obviously he had gotten fired, but career suicide just like that. How does this guy pop back from that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any coming back from that, but I don't feel bad for him. I mean, he's harboring those type of feelings towards people. I mean, get him out of there. Get him out. He got himself out, but I don't feel bad for the guy, not at all.
Well, initially I did feel bad for him. Even right now, I mean, I'm not like, I'm glad they got rid of him. I think they just did the right thing, especially in the climate we have today. If this happened 20 years ago, does the same thing happen? I don't know. I mean, maybe it does. But right now, everything is so hypersensitive, especially when it comes to race relations, things you say, things you may insinuate, and people, just take it just that way. But in a professional setting, that's the reason why he's doing that show and not homie on the street doing that show. He's supposed to know better. He's supposed to have calculated words as he's speaking. He's supposed to know that what can be said, what can't be said, and he can't allow those little things, even if he's harboring any type of feelings. Being a professional means you don't say that kind of thing.
Right. Has he issued an apology? Did he?
Oh, yes. He's apologized profusely. But in this cancel culture, apologies are nothing but memes. Apologies do nothing but make you a meme.
I'm just wondering if he showed any type of remorse or, try to explain his position or whatever.
Yeah, but there's no way out from that because you're going to have that faction of people, even though some people may accept his apology, even most people may accept his apology, there are going to be people out there who just want to keep this thing going. They got him, and now they just want to eviscerate him. And that's what happened. They fired him. I guess they did do the right thing under these circumstances. Now he's out the door. Once again, I want to remind people that this is the Sports Bag Bros podcast. You can check us out right now on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast itself, you can catch it on Spotify. So we're up and going. This is the second episode. I'm Trav, he's Bias, and we're going to take you through some sports talk and real conversation, not just saying things to get people riled up, but just in the natural flow of speaking sports or talking about sports. If it's something that's controversial, hey, let's talk about it. We're not going to be disrespectful, or at least not completely disrespectful, but we're going to just have the real conversation, the same conversation you would have in a sports bar.
Unless they have it coming. If they got it coming, then they're going to get it.
Exactly. You got it coming. You're going to get it. I mean, come on. There's no reason why you should not get it if you have it coming. We're going to have the regular conversation, the same conversation you would have at the sports bar or among your friends, unless you're Glen Kuiper who has other conversations. Outside of that, we're going to just try to keep it a buck. And because of that, we have a litany of other sports to get into. We're going to try to get this done 4 days a week. Right now it's recorded. Later on, it's going to be uploaded to the podcast, but later on it will be live so that you can join us when we have enough people to join us and make it a real conversation. We'll do just that, and then we'll move on from Oakland, the Oakland A's, and Glen Kuiper and him getting fired and suspended and pretty much out of baseball for right now. We're going to talk about something that's bigger, something that actually matters. Tomorrow, Thursday, the NBA Finals goes into its first game. The Denver Nuggets at home in their first finals appearance are going to take on the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, an 8th seed, who just obviously went against the odds and then won their biggest game on the road against the Celtics in a phenomenal game. I thought, and you probably thought, they were going to lose. They won with flying colors. Now they're flying out to Denver.
Right. And, game one's going to be the best chance to win on the road. Denver's been out for what, like 9-10 days now.
Yeah.
They're not going to come out in rhythm, firing on all cylinders. Going to take them probably a couple quarters. And Jimmy's a dog. He's going to come with that intensity. He's going to have his boys ready. And it might take a while for the Nuggets to match that intensity.
Yeah, I think so, because even though, typically it's a double-edged sword. As you were saying, 9 to 10 days off means even if you're running like a finely oiled machine, you can lose that synchronicity. You know what I mean? And you're a little bit rusty. It might come back in the second half, or, if you're rusty in the beginning, it might come back in the second half. It could come back in the second game. But we've already seen what the Heat can do. They can take those 2 games, and they can do it on the road. They've done it already. They've gone through the gamut. So, or you can look at it as the Heat played in that game 7. They should be worn down. But when you have a dog like Jimmy Butler out there, I mean, and other guys now stepping up, and Tyler Hero possibly coming back,
right?
There are going to be problems. This is not going to be an easy series, even though the numbers are going up betting wise from 8.5. Now 9 is the latest I've seen. So, that money is coming in, but I think those are a bunch of squares looking at this. I don't think those are the sharps making the line move.
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw that line, especially in what we just talked about, the long layoff and the Heat going on the road, winning game 7. They have a lot of momentum. And 8 points, 9 points, that's a lot of points to give to a team with so much pride like Miami.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going to bet, I'd take those points.
Oh, yeah, I think I would take those points as well, because they're still hot. And until someone proves otherwise, I'll take them. And you look at this Miami Heat team, and I think it may be a little deeper because, as I mentioned in yesterday's show about Denver, not only you're talking about a better team because, yeah, they are the better team, but you're talking about the natural elements, which is the high elevation in Denver. That's a problem. That's something you can't really prepare for because, well, high altitude is high altitude. Miami isn't high altitude.
Yeah, I mean, I hear high altitude. I think of Akeem Olajuwon playing for Houston down in Albuquerque with the oxygen, trying to catch his breath while NC State was putting it on him. Altitude would turn a lot of talented players into less talented players.
And a talented player like Jokic, well, he can thrive in that type of environment because, as Kwame Brown said, and as we looked at yesterday on yesterday's show, he uses a very low energy game. He just executes the way he executes. And if you don't have to run the floor and do all of this moving around, like Bill Walton once said, don't mistake activity for doing something on the court. And he makes everything he does in that court matter. And if he's not moving around, getting tired with that Denver altitude, even though they're used to it being a home team, I just think that, Miami has their work cut out for them, just playing man for man, let alone that element that could be the deciding factor.
Yeah, I think for the Heat to win the series, Bam Adebayo's got to have a monster series. He could pose some problems with his athleticism, his quickness, and he's going to have to try to use it to his advantage. But if he puts up average numbers, Denver's the better team already. They're going to need monster efforts from Bam, monster effort from Caleb Martin again, but he's capable of doing it.
Yeah, he is.
It's going to be a very interesting finals.
Now, the Tyler Hero factor. Now, when someone says that they're coming back, and I think fans kind of get caught up a little bit, or even non-fans or just basketball fans get caught up a little bit just thinking, okay, he's going to add something to the team. But then you got to be realistic. He's not coming back in, and he's not going to play 30 minutes immediately. He's coming in probably playing 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, and it's going to still be something that the coach decides how much more he's going to play based on how he's playing.
Right. I mean, he's going to have to shake off a lot of rust. You just don't come into the game after not playing for a while and click. Only very special people do that. But him being a shooter, he can stand out by the 3-point line, space the floor. If he hits one, hits two, that'll help his team out.
That reminds me of when Klay Thompson went out with his knee injury. And I remember he made all of these YouTube videos and social media everywhere where he was just shooting 3 after 3. You're like, man, that dude's ready. You know what I mean? Every time this guy was hit like 30 in a row, 3-point to show people he was ready. He was moving around. He was just catching and shooting. Nothing but net. Not even the rim was absent. It was just a net. And he was just hitting it all the time. And I'm thinking to a point that, oh, wow, this guy's going to come back and just be the same old Splash Brother. He came back. He was not the Splash Brothers. After a couple of games, he was still not where he once was. Actually, now after a season and a half, he's still not what he once was. So Tyler Hero, being a younger guy, it's a hand injury, not a leg injury, but still, that rust factor and that game time action, adding all of those other elements, including the high altitude and these longer athletic guys in his face, could pose a problem, and it may limit him. Does he add or does he take away? Because they got themselves a flow without him.
That's very true. We're just gonna have to wait and see if he does come back, how Spoelstra uses him, and how effective he is. But you mentioned Clay's shooting videos. I remember Ben Simmons in the summertime releasing videos.
Yeah.
Oh, he's splashing threes. Season starts, he was still scared to take the threes. Yeah. His man's in the paint. He still wouldn't shoot it. Come on, man, shoot it.
It's that head part of the game. Basketball, I mean, we talk about boxing often, and you look at the 90% mental and the 10% physical. For people who don't know boxing, they just can't fathom that. But in basketball, there's a lot to be said too, because, if especially with Ben Simmons, with the issues he's had, not taking a shot and people ridicule him because of it. And I mean, it really came down on him. Even though he did all of those good things in the gym, when it came down to it, that pressure was still on his brain, not on his body. And he just still could not pull the trigger. And probably when he decided to pull the trigger, he was still getting that result that got him ridiculed to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really speak on Ben Simmons, and he's very disappointing. Very disappointing.
Yeah, it is. And now, and you mentioned Coach Spo, and I like to talk about Coach Spo because you did come up with an opinion or even a statement a little earlier when we were off air about, is Coach Spo really that good, or is he the reason for the Heat being where they are, or is Jimmy Butler, or is it just one of these unions like Michael Jordan had with Phil Jackson? Is it one of those? Is it Coach Spo a great coach? I can't say he's been on the bandwagon of championships, but he's one of the few guys who's still been around with all these coaches getting fired.
That's true. I think you have to give the entire coaching staff credit. They've developed these undrafted players, guys in the second round, are performing at a high level that nobody expected them to reach. And is that Jimmy making them better, or is that coaching and development? I got to go with coaching and development.
Now, Jimmy was a finished product when he got there. And Jimmy's always been a pretty good individual player, actually a damn good individual player. It's always been that kind of attitude and chemistry and cohesiveness with his teammates. I remember when he went up to Philly before he came to Miami, and when he left Philly, you had all of these little not so subtle messages about at least the locker room was a lot better now, and you knew who they were talking about. And the talent was there. So he was a finished product when he came here, and then we saw in 2020 what he was all about. I mean, it goes beyond coaching what he did. And he's doing a lot of that now. Is he in the right system? Spo knows when to use him, when to hold him, when to fold him, or it's just a great union between those two. No one person gets the credit, whether it's Jimmy or Coach Spo. They both just coexist, and this is what we're getting.
That's a good point. Maybe Spoelstra knows what buttons to push, what strings to pull at the right time, as opposed to past coaches who maybe rubbed Jimmy the wrong way or didn't get along with him, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Spoelstra's able to get the most out of Jimmy when the others weren't.
And we see that right now. I mean, Jimmy, I haven't heard too much complaining with him, going on, because the other places he's been, it's always been a Jimmy problem. With Miami, I haven't heard too much of a Jimmy problem, man. I mean, maybe he respects even Pat Riley in the upper office, in addition to Coach Spo. Coach Spo is not just here because he's a puppet. This guy can coach basketball. The NBA has already shown they don't care about firing someone if the person's not doing what they need. I mean, big-time coaches. Monty Williams got freaking fired after they were just kneeling at his freaking altar just 2 seasons ago.
Yeah. I don't think Doc Rivers deserves to get fired, but
you don't think so? Well, I think it was. I think he should
It's
have been.
not his fault. It's not his fault. His players didn't show up.
He's supposed to get these guys, man.
They're saying maybe he didn't get them in the right frame of mind. They lost Game 6 at home, the closeout game. You know, how much motivation do you need? Boston has beaten Philly time after time after time since Embiid has been there. What more motivation do you need? You need your coach to give you a pep talk?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, man, nah.
We as laymen can sit back and say that kind of thing because these guys are getting paid millions of dollars. That should be your incentive anyway. And if you're a younger player, you're looking for that max contract. So you're trying to do what you can do now so you can get that big contract later. You know, motivation. I mean, I wouldn't know the first thing about motivating a basketball player because they get such exorbitant amounts of money. You know, like football players play just a few games. They get paid a lot too, but basketball players just go through the roof and they got that guaranteed money. What is the incentive? Someone's got to tell you you're in the playoffs. Someone's got to tell you that you have a legacy that you want to create or build on. That's where I'm kind of befuddled with that.
Yeah, but as far as the finals, man, I wish Morris was on the Heat. I see that same energy from Jokic, Morris, and Jimmy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's going to be any carryover. But if Morris was there, you know, there'd be a little bit of it.
And those Jokic brothers would be there too, because those guys wanted all of the smoke as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? His brother's one of them is an MMA fighter. He was an undefeated fighter back then. I don't know what he is now. But there's plenty of smoke to go around if someone wanted to get out of hand. So before that series starts tomorrow, what are your predictions, I guess, for this series? Is it? I'll ask you before I give whatever.
I think the Heat still game 1. But the Nuggets get it together, and I got Nuggets in 6.
Yeah, I think Nuggets in 6 as well. But what happens if the Heat gets blown out in that first game? And so game 2, you think it's a blowout as well? And then it just goes downhill because, I mean, the Heat are going to get back in the game at home. But they also prove that they can lose at home with something on the line like they did in game 4.
Right. I won't be able to talk about game 2 until I see game 1.
Yeah.
All night. So, I mean, if you ask me if they get blown out, yeah, it doesn't bode well for game 2. But then do the Nuggets relax a little bit? Does that give the Heat a little more incentive? Hey, we got to come out and play harder, got to play tougher, you know, a lot of factors. So we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good series. I think this is not what the NBA might have wanted. You have Denver and you have Miami. As money goes, they probably didn't want that. They like Boston. You know what I mean? They would trade Boston in for Miami, even though Miami's a solid market, but Boston's a big money market. And right. Denver, you know, it's not. But I just look at the games. Just look at the games. Look at the players and look what they have to bring to the table in terms of the aesthetic value that these two teams put together. Forget the dollars and cents, man. These guys get paid enough. I mean, regardless, you know, I'm never going to hit on someone's money, man. But let it be about basketball instead of what these networks can make during their commercial breaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, is this finals going to be Jamal Murray's coming out party?
Yep.
I mean, hardcore basketball fans know who Jamal Murray is.
But, yeah, and if they didn't, they found out.
Right.
They found out Jamal Murray, bro. And
these games they're not going to be on TNT. They're not going to be on ESPN. They're going to be on ABC. So
everybody can watch.
Audiences, right.
You have old analog television that you got to turn the channels on with your own hands and still see it. So if you're out there in the middle of nowhere, as long as you got a signal and a 12-inch television that might be black and white, you can still watch the game. So, yeah, this is for public consumption all over the planet because everybody's watching this game, especially because Jokic is an international player. He has a heck of a following in his own country and other European countries. So, yeah, this is something that they're going to check out. And,
I mean, I could see a bunch of players making a good name for themselves.
Yeah, this is what you do. These are
Caleb Martin, Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah,
ACP. You know, those guys can shoot, and they all can go for 25, 30 if they get hot.
Exactly. This is the pinnacle of basketball. I mean, theoretically, the best players on the planet are now coming down to it right now. These two teams are now considered the best two teams on the planet. No other team in the world is like these two teams. And we're going to get to see allegedly the highest level of basketball with all eyes on them in the NBA. And we'll find that out starting tomorrow. And if it goes to game 6, we'll at least get 6 good games, we hope.
Hopefully. But I'll tell you one thing I'm glad I won't be seeing. Austin Reeves going like this in the first quarter after he hits his first 3. Come on, man.
You got whole 3 quarters to go.
Right.
You know, that's that young stuff, man. He's only.
He played. He had a great playoff run.
Yes.
But come on. You make it 3 to make it 13 to 12, and
that's that young stuff. He's gonna have to learn. You know, he comes from Oklahoma.
Pump the brakes, man.
You know, he come from Blake Griffin, Oklahoma, man. This is that's what he does. You know, and you know what? He wants to be with the Lakers. He says he wants to sign with the Lakers, but you have other teams now see what he can do. I think I heard Houston is hot and heavy on him right now as well.
I'll take him on the Bulls. I mean, he's a really good player. I'm not dissing his game. It's just his celebrations.
He's a celebration. He's like mean mugging somebody when you get a dunk when you're down by 30. You look at their bench like, see, I got it.
Tore the rim up. Did you see that?
Now, speaking of players going from place to place, you've mentioned while we were off the air, of course, and we'll bring it up now, Kyrie Irving, another big name player on the Dallas Mavericks right now. Where will he end up? Mark Cuban, he wants him. He said he wants him, but he's not willing to give up everything for him, which he shouldn't.
I don't know why anyone would, really. Look what he did to Brooklyn. Then he got traded to Dallas. They didn't get any better. He's an incredible
Ben Simmons, it was all a mess.
Yeah, but Kyrie with his off the court issues, plays sometimes don't play. There's a lot of drama there that isn't necessary.
Well, I think that those were special circumstances in terms of with COVID and him deciding a personal decision not to get vaxxed, and with New York laws being what they were, you know, it played into him not being able to play, but he could play on the road, you know, and when he played on the road, he did well. But it all came down to those 3 players not playing more than 20 games together the entire time they were there. And even with that being said, they still got themselves pretty far, and it was a Kevin Durant shoe size away from a possible NBA championship. That's what it came down to. But Kyrie Irving, but he's been a different guy. He's always been different, and he's always letting you know he's a kind of different guy. He likes to let you out there.
Yeah, with Kyrie, I don't think it's all about basketball.
Nope.
So, why would I want that guy on my team? He's an incredible talent.
Absolutely phenomenal.
You can't stop him from getting. You can't stop him from getting to a spot or where he wants to go or finishing that team. But is he the guy that's going to take you to the promised land? I don't see it.
Oh no! Well, he's proven that a couple of times that he isn't. I mean, when he went to Boston, I thought they had it, and they had nothing but problems, and that's why he ended up leaving there. You know, and Cleveland, you know, he got some credit for LeBron being there and them winning a championship in Cleveland. It's just that the experiment that happened in Brooklyn, I expected a lot more, just like everyone else. You know, you had nothing but an all-star team there, and nothing got done. When you bring those types of players in, you know, it's like bringing in the big 3 that they had down in Miami when Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron were there. At least they got something out of it. You know what I mean? They didn't get nothing out of it. This team got absolutely nothing out of it. Just a bunch of names on the team, and now aging names on the same team, and you got nothing out of it.
Yeah, like I said, if I'm Mark Cuban, I find a way to ship him out. I wouldn't want him. But again, if I'm a GM of another team, I still wouldn't want him.
Oh, but you know that's not going to happen. You know, someone's going to get him. He's way too talented.
Right.
He may not be in his prime right now, but he's still better than like 95% of the NBA at his position, or even overall, to where he's going to garner that type of attention and the big money and all that. But like you said, I don't think it's about the money or the basketball. It's about some cerebral thing he's on right now, that he thinks he's some guru instead of a basketball player, which isn't a bad thing. But if you're paid to play basketball, be a guru on the court.
Do your job.
Yeah, do your job. Exactly. This is the life you've chosen. No one said you must play basketball. No one said you must get $200 million to play basketball. That's what you chose to do. You know, but Kyrie's going to be who Kyrie is. And whoever picks him up, whether he stays in Dallas or he goes somewhere else, what do you think might be the best place for him if in the perfect world where everyone might want Kyrie Irving, what would be the best place for him?
I can't really think of a perfect spot for him. I know there's a lot of talk about the Lakers wanting him. Does he want to go and team up with LeBron again? I mean, he left LeBron in Cleveland.
Exactly. I don't think so. And I think someone like him who goes out there as a cerebral guy off the basketball court, I don't think he, and I don't think it's about selfishness or anything like that. I just think that he and LeBron probably don't mesh well, when they're on the court together. LeBron, even right now, he's going to be 39 years old in December. He's still not going to want to wholeheartedly defer to Anthony Davis. He's still going to try to still be that guy. And if you look at the last series in which they played before they lost this series by a sweep, the previous series, they, every game they won, it was Anthony, with the exception of the last game of the series, it was Anthony Davis leading the way. I thought the offense had to go through Anthony Davis. The team had to go through Anthony Davis to win. And the time that LeBron led, they lost. He needs to defer to him. And I don't think he's willing to do that even now. And he's still, right now, he's so hell-bent on playing with his son. He's kind of hanging around for that.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. But, I mean, now that LeBron's older, maybe Kyrie would get along with him better. I mean, on the court, that is. Maybe they would have better with rhythm because LeBron's kind of taking a step back role now.
Yeah, but he still gets in guys' faces. And Kyrie's not that kind of guy that lets you get in his face. He's a Jersey guy, New York area guy. He's not going to let you embarrass him on the basketball court because LeBron does get in your face and he does subliminally, or if not so subliminally, points you out when you're wrong. And he'll never be wrong himself, in his opinion. But either way, LeBron, Kyrie, I don't know what I'll have. I don't want him as a Knick. I know that much.
I don't want him on the Bulls either.
I'm a Knicks fan. I don't want him on the Knicks. So I look at him, even though he's a New York area guy. We've seen that kind of thing before with Stephon Marbury. No.
Let him stay in Dallas.
Yeah, but you know what? But he needs the ball, and so does Luka. How does that work? I mean, I just can't see it working. And sticking with the basketball topic, we can move on to a little bit of controversy, I guess, a little bit. Skip Bayless and Charles Barkley now going at it seemingly officially because Skip Bayless finally got tired of Charles Barkley getting on his butt for so many years. He's decided to speak out. He called him a clown. He says that people don't laugh with you, they laugh at you. I don't know about that, man. Charles can get serious and Charles can say something. I know that he's there. He's kind of like the Howard Stern of basketball. He's a shot clock. But there's a lot of sense he makes when he speaks about basketball. He makes some sense. And you might not like the way it's delivered, but a lot of times it's true. But in this case here, I mean, talking about Skip Bayless, this in the irony, of course, is there. A media guy, a newspaper guy who makes a living off of slinging mud, talking about players, and now he's like, I'm a victim here. What's going on? Why are you talking about me like this? My wife is upset. I think his mother-in-law is upset that Charles Barkley's talking about him like this. Now he decides to speak out. What are your thoughts on Skip Bayless, the victim?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with these Fox Sports guys, man. I mean, Shannon Sharp got Kwame going at him. Skip, he's gotten a lot of flack over the years. I don't know if he believes a lot of the things he says. I think he says a lot of things for effect. I remember the episode when Richard Sherman was on with him on ESPN.
Yeah,
he's a winner at life, saying that he's doing better than Skip. Or Mark Cuban was schooling Skip Bayless. They were showing the film, and he's like, "You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe the coach was telling him to do this." And he's gotten schooled by so many guests on his own show. Maybe Barkley has taken exception to a lot of the things he said, and Barkley's commented on it. Maybe it's been a little harsh. Maybe I'm not exactly sure what got his wife upset, Skip's wife upset, but when you send it out, you got to expect some of it to come back.
He's made a career of sending it out. I mean, when you're a media member, I think he worked for the Dallas Star Morning News or whatever it might have been. I mean,
He's in
he's worked all
Chicago.
over the place. This guy's been out for a long time. I mean, he's been around for a long time, man. He's always been that guy that was the antagonist. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys that would tell an athlete, man, just shut up. You knew what you signed up for being an athlete. You know, you're going to have to deal with this. Now the shoe's on the other foot when someone's just saying something and it's a fellow media member who's done something that he hasn't done. He's played in the NBA when you couldn't even get past high school. You know, you didn't even get a scholarship like Kwame Brown said. And, you know, and now there's a problem with it. It's just, I really have no problem with Skip Bayless because I take him for what he is. He's just that kind of guy. He's an antagonist. He's a shock jock kind of guy. And he says things, like you said, for effect. So, you know, he is who he is. And I don't think you should be surprised by the things he says, but Charles Barkley is also who he is. And he carries a lot more weight than Skip Bayless. And he says what he says. And, you know, I guess it became more of an issue now that Skip Bayless, his wife, doesn't like the ways, you know, doesn't like the continued antagonizing, I guess.
Yeah, but I think he should have stayed away from his podcast addressing it. Maybe he should have found a way to reach out to Charles and say, you know, Charles, what is your real issue with me? You know, let's resolve this as men. You know, putting it on the podcast, that's just giving Charles more ammunition.
But you know how that goes in today's age where everyone is kind of look at me, even when you're trying to do something like that, when you're trying to act like you don't want everyone to look at you, you still almost have this inner thought process of someone, you know, you have to put it out there. Everything that's said in private now has to become public knowledge. You know, it's like these TikTokers and people like that. They're talking about their private lives, you know, and they come on there crying about whatever that private issue might have been, whether it's with their family member or someone on the outside, something that we would never know privately. They're saying this because it just has to be out there in the ether, you know, and I think that's what Skip Bayless, you know, I don't think he'll go to Charles Barkley one-on-one because it doesn't get ratings, because bad publicity is still good publicity. And he may not like it, but you know what? More eyes are still on Skip Bayless, and Charles Barkley is still going to be Charles Barkley.
Yeah, but he did it on his own personal podcast and not on his TV show.
Yeah, well, he wanted to be able to give the smoke directly instead of sharing the time with Shay Shay.
Probably, but I'm just saying, I'm sure his TV show has a larger audience than his podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I think the podcast is more personable. His name, the brand, all of that is on it. And most likely the people who listen to his podcast, they're most likely exclusively interested in what he has to say. You know, when you have the general show with Shannon Sharp, you know, you'll have your Shannon Sharp fans that may not like Skip Bayless. You'll have your Skip Bayless fans who may not like Shannon Sharp, or you just like people who like the dynamic of the show, and they're not going to give you, you know, they're not going to be, they could be biased. But when you're on Skip Bayless's podcast, you know, you're there because he's there. And so, you know, he got more people on his side to kind of fight with him.
But, okay, I'm thinking of it being as like, that's a sympathetic crowd. So that would be like me gathering a bunch of friends and telling them, hey, you know, this is what's going on. I don't appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. As opposed to coming here and addressing it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Where it's open to everybody.
Now, is Charles Barkley one of those guys that if you did invite him on your show, will he just go straight toxic, nuclear? He can. We know he's combustible like that. and then, I mean, it'll get crazy ratings and people, a lot of attention, but it's a terrible look if he gets the best of you.
That's true.
You know, it's a bad look. You know, hopefully those two get it together. Hopefully, I hope they don't get it together so we can continue the entertainment.
And well, maybe he's learned from his incidents with Richard Sherman and Mark Cuban and Terrell Owens.
But why would he have to learn that late in life about those kinds of things? I mean, seriously, sports, right? I've been in sports for years. You know, I never tried to ruffle guys' feathers. What I said, I meant what I said, and I always kept in mind not to try to embarrass someone when I'm doing it to make a name for myself. I never tried to do that. I know there are media types, plenty of them, who want to make their name of a viral moment these days, and they want to say something that's going to go viral, and they don't care how embarrassing it is for the player or how bad it makes the player look. You know what I mean? I just never went on it like that. But we have a new and Skipper's older than I am, so he's been in the game a long time. So he shouldn't have to be taught how to speak to these guys or how to address these guys. You know, he shouldn't be able, shouldn't have to.
Yeah, if there was a one-on-one in the studio, Charles would eat him up.
Eviscerate him. Exactly, he would. So we can leave that alone. Another argument for another day, because there's another issue you was thinking about. Not that big an issue, but it's something that bothers you. And there was a 45-second ball roll in the NBA as a rule. You want that thing out of here. How are you going to get it
And
out?
that's so annoying, man. They roll the ball as slowly as possible, and the guy's just walking along, and the other team's on the other side of the court, and they're just letting the clock run. If you're down 10 points and there's 2 minutes in the game, get your ass over there and try and get that ball. Make them pick it up. I just think it's a dumb rule. You got 10 seconds to get it across. 10 seconds regardless if you touch it or not. 10 seconds.
Yep.
That's what I say.
Once it past the half court, I mean, you still got time ticking. And if no one's jumped at the ball, you still got that 12 seconds
right.
now.
And you still have 24 on the shot clock.
Yep. So that was one of your grievances, and it was just funny to me, man. Of all the rules out there, that little pain in the butt ball roll is a big deal.
It's just annoying, man. Very annoying.
Because
I can't fault teams for using it. Yeah, if you're trying to kill the clock and they're going to let you do it, by all means, kill the clock. But I just think there should be a rule in place to prevent that. That's what I'm saying.
And your other issue is the CBA luxury tax.
I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with that. It's just the fact that the teams who pay the luxury tax, it's going to get a lot tougher for them.
Yeah, it's going to get tougher, but we're talking about mega billionaires. I mean, everyone who owns an NBA team is a mega billionaire. It could be the Yankee. It could be like the Yankees when they have their luxury tax. They go over it, so what? They'll just pay it, and now what? So people are going to still do a lot of the same thing. And baseball players get those huge salaries as well, just like basketball players. So these billionaires, man, and especially in these larger markets where they're making the money. I mean, Boston, New York, LA, Chicago, Houston, big markets like that. I mean, even Atlanta making money like that. The luxury tax, if you're on the cusp of winning a championship, the luxury tax means nothing because you're going to probably get that championship.
Right. The frustrating thing is when there's a young team with superstars and they're coming up for their contract extensions, it seems like you're not able to keep them all, especially in football. Why should you not be able to keep your players that you drafted, you developed, just so someone else can reap the benefits?
Well, if you want to talk about that, I'm talking about a real great example of that are the Tampa Bay Rays. Their farm system and their executives got to be the best in baseball. These guys constantly bring players through the pipeline, and then you can't keep them because no one goes to their games unless it's a rival team that comes that has a following, like the Yankees, comes down to Tampa. And that's one reason why they may sell out or not. And they have these excellent young players coming through the pipeline. They're playing well right now, but within 5 years, the Yankees are going to have them. The Dodgers may have them. The Boston Red Sox may have them. They're not going to come through the pipeline and be the same guy. I mean, they're not going to be on the same team. Maybe a couple because they just can't facilitate everyone with the money, but not enough to keep that dynasty thing going. And dynasties seem like in basketball, without the luxury tax, we saw a small market team like San Antonio, win all those championships. But that's a rarity, extreme rarity. And now with the luxury tax, if you're on the cusp of winning championships, you'll blow that. You say, you know what? I don't care about the luxury tax because you're going to get these 4 or 5 championships again. I mean, the possibilities are there.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the Nuggets. Let's say Michael Porter Jr. has a huge finals. When it's time for his contract, are they going to be able to pay him? They're going to give Jokic the max. They're going to give Murray the max probably,
Ooh, it's going to be heavy. That's a lot of money going around. I mean, and every time a team gets sold, the price of the team, the value of the other team gets higher. You know what I mean? And it just continues like that. I remember, I think Shad Khan, when he bought the Jaguars, I think he bought them for like $670 million, and it was cash. And then now the Jaguars are worth like $2 billion, probably going towards $3 billion because other teams have been sold or just overall the valuation just went up. It's gone up. So, that's just the way these sports are going. Everything's going up, regardless of inflation or regardless of unemployment, all these other things that happen in society. It doesn't go down. It doesn't even stay still. It just continually goes up. You know, what was that Matt, the guy who just bought the Phoenix Suns, from United Wholesale Mortgage.
Oh, the one who stopped,
his last
one
name.
who stopped when Jokic was trying to get the ball.
Huh? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But anyway, you know, he bought them, I believe, for like $4 billion or something like that, $4 billion. You know, the Phoenix Suns weren't up there like that before, but you know, the state of Arizona is going up in terms of cost of living, people coming there, opportunity that's there, investors in real estate going up. But anyways, it just goes up. Everything's going up. It never stays still. We got just a few minutes left on this podcast. God, I can't believe we just went through it. And I don't want to make this just NBA, but the NBA is pretty heavy right now with the finals being tomorrow and, you know, other things happening in the NBA. But
real quick, we talked about Shohei Ohtani yesterday.
Yes.
He had 2 home runs against my White Sox today.
See, I didn't even know that, but that's the player he is, man.
The second one was a bomb. It was like 460. He got every bit of it.
Man, and I was just talking about the issues he was having this year with pitching. You know, but you forget the other side of the partition. This guy's killing you with his bat. You know, I was talking about his wild pitches and his hitting batters, but he goes on the other side of the ball, and he's one of those tough guys because, you know, back in the day, you know, a pitcher could just hit anybody he wanted. He didn't have to bat up, at least in the American League. But now everybody just bats up and they pitch, you know, and we see how that goes.
Right.
But anyway, so moving on from that, we can talk a little bit of football right now, and we can bring up Aaron Rodgers, the old man, 39 years old, with the New York Jets, leaving the Green Bay Packers, strained his calf, missed a couple of days of practice, OTAs. He should be back on Friday. I mean, it's a little early. It's never too early to talk about the NFL, but especially with Aaron Rodgers being one of those, you know, legendary players, living legend, still playing, even though he has one championship. But he's with the Jets, and there's a real possibility that things could happen in his favor this upcoming season based on that Jets defense.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. You know, Brady left the Patriots, went to Tampa, who got a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers can do it with the Jets, I know that's your team. You know, Jets haven't been
relevant since 69.
Relevant. They haven't been relevant. So, I mean, that'd be a big feather in his cap.
With the defense being what it is, and the quarterbacks we had last season was absolutely atrocious, putrid, everything. I mean, they were just absolutely Zach Wilson. I don't even know why they took him in the first round, let alone as early as they did. And their defense, though, kept them in so many games. And if they just had a little bit of help on offense, they would win. And they were winning when they had just a little bit of help. Now we have offensive weapons. We had offensive weapons. Garrett Wilson is going to be a freaking stud. And we have other players that have come now, wide receivers, tight ends. You know, the running back situation, the NFL's changed to where the running back doesn't have to be as premier as they used to. And I think they can get it done with a quarterback like him. And believe it or not, I didn't even want Aaron Rodgers. I wanted Derek Carr. You know, I saw the Brett Favre experiment before. You know what I mean? I want Derek Carr is someone who's solid. He's let me see, Rob Johnson. I mean, Johnson that played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was good enough, but he didn't have to do too much because the defense was that good. And they won themselves a Super Bowl with Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, and John Lynch, and then John Lynch. Well, you know, they had a hell of a damn team back then. And they had John Johnson. I mean, even
they had a really good defense.
Yeah, and they won because of it. And you had one quarterback that the quarterback who wasn't anything special was able to win it. Brad Johnson, that is. You know, he played for Florida State.
Just don't lose it for us, right?
Yeah, exactly. But he did more than that. I think Trent Dilfer was the more of the losing for us quarterback when he played for the Baltimore Ravens, because that sick defense we'll never see again.
Yeah. But, you know, there's going to be some interesting matchups this year. Rodgers in the AFC East going up against Josh Allen. I don't know their schedule, but, you know, the AFC has a bunch of good young.
God. And I still think Kansas City is the pace setter. Kansas City's still the pace setter, but teams have gotten better. I mean, the Dolphins, man. I mean, if Tua could stay healthy, man, and that's always an if now because this guy just can't stay healthy. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
football may be the death of him. I hope not, but this guy just can't stay healthy. And the Patriots, come on, how many years are going to go by without Bill Belichick having something to say? Even though, again, they were caught from some type of infraction and they lost 2 days of practice of OTAs. Come on, they just can't. You had Spygate, you have this, you have that. You know, and I like Bill Belichick from his days with the Giants. You know, he's still and the one day he had with the Jets before he even coached and quit with the New England. But anyway, we're going to stay on this football thing, but we're going to go down to the college ranks. And that would be, why not talk a little college football? Next month, which is tomorrow, is a month away from SEC Media Day, ACC Media Day, Big 12 Media Day, everyone's Media Day, even small colleges like the SWAC and the MEAC Media Days. So why not talk about Deion Sanders, who's like the biggest story in college football right now with all the transfer portal things going on. He's with Colorado, a team that was 1-11, I believe, and coming from Jackson State, where he was 27-6, but did not win a national championship. I've covered HBCU football for years, literally decades, and I've seen it up close. I've been on the sidelines, been in the press boxes for those games, and it's not overly impressive most times. And what he did there was phenomenal because he just had more talent than everybody. Now he's going to Colorado, who hasn't had that elite talent since the days of Eric Bieniemy, Sal Anessi, and Darian Hagan. Come on.
Well, you know, they had Cordell Stewart, Michael Westbrook, and those guys.
Yeah, Cordell, but they didn't win a championship with those guys.
I'm just saying they had talent.
Yeah, and Ray Caruth.
Yeah.
Well, come on now.
We'll skip over that one.
Yeah, and
it's going to be interesting. You know, let's see what Deion can do his first year. You know, they play my Huskers week 2, and you know Matt Rule, he's got big plans. He brought in some talent via the transfer portal.
The transfer portal is a game changer, man. I mean,
Definitely.
for recruiting classes, and even graduates just graduate, they come to your school. Now everything is fair game, and I think it is fair. Initially, I didn't like it, but it is fair because these coaches come to your living room, lying to you about how long they're going to be there, how much they can do with your kid, and then the next year they're gone, and your kid's stuck with that scholarship with the next regime that comes in that may not mesh well with them, and they got to deal with it or just go through a tumultuous transfer. Now you just easily transfer, go where you want, and then you get in when you fit in. And some players have 3 and 4 teams they go to before they finally settle down and play for a team. But I'm not one of these people who's against Deion Sanders. I want to see him have some success for the right reasons as a coach moving up from an HBCU, just seeing what he could do up there because we don't have too many HBCU coaches, even though Deion's a complete anomaly. We don't have too many HBCU coaches going to the major ranks and making anything happen. And not only is he in the major ranks, he's in a major conference, at least for now, because the Big 12. I just don't know what's going to happen with that. With Oklahoma and Texas now going to the SEC, and they're scrambling to bring other teams in to try to save themselves.
Yeah. You know, it's going to take them a couple of years. You know, are they going to go 12-0 this year? I highly doubt it. But, you know, it's going to take a few years for him to get his players in there. And who's more high profile than Deion?
Yeah.
Going to kids' living room.
And if you're a cornerback, I mean, who would not want to be, like Travis Hunter, who was a cornerback coming out of high school, and he chose to go to Jackson State because he was the number 1 player in high school football, number 1 cornerback. Why not learn from Deion? And he was such an athlete. He was able to catch the ball as a receiver and do everything else out there. He just had a little bit of an injury initially, but this he has the ability. Now we're going to see how that ability transfers in the Big 12 now that you're playing against the bigger teams, Oklahoma State, and at least for this season, Oklahoma as well. And, the Big 12 may not be the elite conference like the SEC or Big 10, but it's a far cry from the HBCUs, any of them. Jackson State, Southern, Grambling, any of them.
All right. Yeah, so, I mean, we'll see how Deion does this year. But, again, it's going to take him a couple of years to really get a good hold of things and get his people there, build his culture. And I actually hope he succeeds, even though, being a Nebraska fan, we don't like Colorado.
Yeah.
For Deion, him personally, I hope he does well.
Yeah, I hope so too. And on that note, we're going to conclude today's second episode of the Sports Bag Bros podcast. SBBP, You can find us on Spotify or right here on YouTube if you want to see the visual. And if you're going to come see the visual, make sure you hit the subscribe button. More importantly, make sure you hit that thumbs up, like this, share this if this is the type of sports talks you like. We're going to try to go through the whole litany of sports. If it is something you like, you'll jump on board and you'll go for the ride with us. I'm Trav. He's Bias.
Make some suggestions. Give us topics you want to hear.
It's simple as that. Exactly. Give us the topics you want to hear. You must think you're not going to talk hockey. Man, bring the hockey talk. You can talk to us about it. No, but we know enough about hockey where we can talk a little bit of hockey. And if not, I do have experts on hand who can hit you.
The Blackhawks got the #1 pick.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw that. I kind of knew that, but yeah, they got the #1 pick, man. And how long has it been since they had the #1 pick? It's been a long time. Long time.
Yeah, I just know they needed it.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I remember a couple of years ago, the Blackhawks were a little near and dear to my heart because they was killing the gambling wise because they were scoring like 2 goals or more in the first quarter of the first period. And, they had some little streak going on where people just betted on them, man. Like, yeah, they're going to get more than 2 goals or get more than a goal in the first period, or at least the over-under between them and the other team. And every night it seemed like it was happening. So, yeah.
Yeah, they had a good run. They had a really good run.
Yeah. And that was like 2-3 years ago. So they're dear and near because the lights stayed on because of them. But anyway, hey, we needed it. So, yeah, Sports Bag Brothers podcast is coming at you. And we will try to do this, as I mentioned earlier in the show, 4 days a week, normally Monday through Thursday. This week it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're going to do tomorrow's show when the NBA finals are about to start. The reason why Memorial Day was Monday, so we couldn't do it. So if you're down with us, look out for us on YouTube once again. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, make sure you share it, and all this other stuff you got to do. Spotify, check it out. Sports Bag Bros Podcast. That's on Spotify as well. So for Bias, or I'll let Bias speak for himself. You tell him what.
Peace. We'll see you tomorrow night.
That's it. Peace. We're out.